are now being recorded. All right. So be careful what you say. All right. Did anybody take a look at the minutes from our last meeting? Please say yes.
I gotta be honest, I did not see it. The minutes
All right,
last
well,
morning.
anybody who read them, you notice there was one section where I needed somebody to help me fill out. I couldn't remember. It's under the Hanson Farm paragraph, under old business. Somebody moved to submit the Community Preservation Committee eligibility form, and I don't know who it was, and I don't know who seconded it. Did anybody know?
It wasn't recorded?
Oh, I don't know. I didn't know. I'm not gonna go back into the town recordings. I mean, they're not posted for a long time. I don't know where I would even find it.
Oh,
All
we're
right,
talking
well-
about the OSC draft
Yeah,
minutes?
the eligibility form, the eligibility form, the CPC eligibility form that we submitted to the Community Preservation Committee. And we all agreed to it, but so I just didn't know who moved, so I'm not gonna worry about it.
Eileen, I think I seconded. I think I second that motion when we
All
did
right.
that.
Okay,
I think I either proposed it or second the motion when we submitted that form.
all right. All right, that's good enough. Any other comments on the minutes? Can I have a motion to approve?
Yes.
I'll second.
Everybody okay with that, Nicole? Okay, all right, thank you.
Yep.
So we will not have Michael Dutton or Steve with us tonight. I did talk with Steve a little bit today. Actually, what I was hoping to get from him was an update on Styles and Hart, and that was pursuant to an earlier conversation I had with Monica, which Monica has worked on constructing bridges and trails at Styles and Hart, and I had talked with her earlier about something else this week, and I was just curious what was going on there, and she said not much, so I talked with Steve, and he said not much.
Yep.
Which was disappointing, because I thought this was the one parkland that was going full steam ahead without us. You know, I felt like, and we had decided we'd kind of take it off our agenda because there was supposed to be a lot of energy going into that. There was money, they'd gotten the grant for the parking, and that this was top priority, but nothing's happening. I'm not.
Well,
sure
I can
exactly-
tell you that there are 2 lots that are behind the Chinese restaurant, between the restaurant and the new piece of land that they just bought. And when real estate prices went crazy, the purchase of that property got tabled. So they are going to meet with the owners again, I think in the next week or 2, and try to negotiate a reasonable price. But it still needs to be looked at by the town engineers to see if it's going to serve as a good parking area.
Oh,
And we don't know how wet it is. We don't know how much fill is going to be needed.
It probably got way too expensive. They probably changed the terms or something like that.
Yeah. Well, I know that this is the last piece of property that they're trying to get rid of in a corporation. All the owners are getting up there in age and they just want to dissolve it. I did ask them if they would be willing to donate it, and it's a family of 7, at least 7 when I last talked to them. And the majority said no. So
oh,
that's where that stands. But the road into it, and the curb cut has not been, nothing's been worked on since I've been in there.
yeah.
So back to kicking ass. See if we can do something.
Yeah. Yeah, I was surprised at that. And Steve said that, I told him, you know, I knew from talking with you that you were just trying to get some wood in there so that you could, so that the bridge construction, the trail bridge could be completed. And he said, well, there, you know, there's no town staff to do it.
Yep.
Nobody's assigned to this, no one has this responsibility. You know, Department of Public Works is rearranging things, and they've got a new public works director, and there's been some reorganization, and of course,
Yeah,
So
there's
it's-
always an excuse. If you want
Yeah.
to do it, you got to do it yourself. That's how I'm looking at it.
Yeah,
So
that's
I
what
might
I'm-
be out
I'm-
on Facebook looking for volunteers to help.
I'm sorry to say that I'm kind of seeing that myself, that, after being involved with this, but not too long. And I also had a conversation with Kitty Doherty yesterday, and she's cleaning out her office, and she had a lot of stuff from NRT, and Natural Resources Trust of Bridgewater days, that she's trying to get rid of. And so anyway, so I heard from her too about just how these things just go on and on and on, and nothing is ever done, and the town never really has the staff or the resources to put into it. And so, yeah, I'm sort of thinking that that maybe become a bigger part of what we need to do here is less focus on projects and just focus on pushing stuff and seeing what we can do to get somebody having some responsibility for this. Now, of course, this is supposed to happen when the new parklands person is hired, but that hasn't happened. And, as far as I know, they're still posting that and looking for someone, but, who knows how much emphasis is really being put on any of this. I don't know. It may all get backburnered at one point or another. So just because of people who have other priorities. So
I'm actually
So
quite
those
surprised.
particular, oh, sorry. I had a question.
Go ahead.
Those particular
Yeah.
lots, it sounds then like the town did not have right of first refusal, or they did.
I have no idea.
Oh,
Yeah, I don't
yeah,
think, these weren't chapter 61 properties.
Okay.
I don't,
okay.
yeah,
So I think that that's our lesson learned, that's something we really need to try to help, is identify these parcels that we could try to work with, I don't know the
Yeah.
legality of it, but to basically
Yeah.
help the town identify these target properties.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's
And
too bad.
Monica, are these properties essential to parking? I mean, because they just acquired the 5 acres off of High Street, right?
Right. A Broad Street.
Broad Street, okay.
Yeah.
So was that
So,
supposed to be parking also?
The thought process is that is down a hill behind trees and hidden. So these two pieces would be right on the road.
I see, okay.
Parking would be visible. We'd have to create a trail, not a big deal. But the
Yeah.
parking area would be, the expensive part and
Okay.
the purchase. So it would be more ideal to have parking directly on the street.
Yeah.
And a sign. Oh my God, a sign.
Yeah,
I actually asked, what was it called? The town highway department. It's where they have all the salt and everything, like their
Right, yeah.
stores. I actually went in there and I asked for a new street sign because my street sign was so decrepit and rusty looking and all this. So I kind of bugged them. I didn't want to be annoying, but they actually got a sign for us because they custom order them right there on behalf of the town.
Oh,
Yeah.
It was the highway department.
But I don't think there's anything set up for signs for the parks.
right, yeah.
Yeah, right. I think that's exactly what it is. But I mean, my gosh, I don't know what the biggie would be to just put a word in for an order for a couple signs and have them install the thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, that's an interesting point, that, because if they have the capability of making street signs there, then presumably they have the capability of making other types of signs too. If, I mean,
Right.
Pat, you're
But
shaking your
I
head
think it
no.
goes even further back than that, because they need to design something that's going to be looking the same for all the
Right,
parks.
yeah.
So they need to come up with a conservation logo. They need to come up with a color scheme that's probably going to match the ones that are existing either in other towns or on the university property. A lot more thought has to be put into it. So
Yeah.
you'd have to hire somebody to do that.
Yeah, that's what we talked about that in the past, yeah, and actually going to the Community Preservation Committee and asking for a consultant who could help design signs, but anyway,
Mhm.
yeah, it's not one of our top priorities at this point, so. All right.
I thought
So,
there'd be a precedence. Wasn't there a precedence for making park signs already that they have throughout the state? That they already have a template. Would they already have a template?
they've, I don't think they have had a process here. Because I somewhere found a slide in November 2019 of a public meeting where they had to talk about sign designs, and Kitty Doherty told me yesterday that they actually came up with one, which I've never seen, and I didn't know that. That she said it never went anywhere, and I know Michael has told us before that I think there were 2 occasions when somebody, he or someone else within the town government has gone to the council and sought approval of a logo for Bridgewater. I mean, something that would cover not just parks, but just a brand, you know, and that they haven't liked it, or they haven't thought it was necessary. And so both times it didn't really make any progress, which was one of the.
Oh, I had no idea.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh,
yeah, it was one of the things that made me think that I don't want to make this a top priority for us right now either, because if it's already been tried twice and it hasn't flown, I'm not sure it's going to be that simple, and I'd rather work on something a little more concrete. For instance, what we're having Lauren do with getting stuff up on the website, and without having to deal with designs and a consultant and getting money for that can come later, but.
That's fair enough.
Anyway.
That's fair enough. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I had no idea that was already a tried thing.
Yep. So the other thing is that I did set up Steve and I think are going to go out to Tuckerwood. Monica has been out there recently, and she told me that somebody is taking care of the property, that the trails are cut and or the brushes cut, but nobody knows who that is. And Steve wasn't aware of it. Anyway, I think it's great that we have volunteers like at Carver Pond and Titicut and apparently Tuckerwood who are doing good work. But it seems just strange that nobody knows about it. At Titicut, I know there's a Boy Scout troop that's been involved, and I think that's kind of common knowledge. And at Carver Pond, there is a volunteer that's well known, Mel Shea Jr., who has been working on it for years. But apparently there's a volunteer at Titicut, and that's great if what they're doing is good, but you know, if nobody knows what they're up to, it just seems to me that those town properties should not be without inspection or awareness of what's going on. It just seems to me that that's really terrible.
That sounds kind of shady. Just some random person's doing the maintenance of the park. That's. I'm happy.
I would call it somebody who's disgusted that it hasn't been done.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
fair
I think,
enough.
it's maybe somebody who lives by, maybe somebody who just likes to walk there. I mean, that's what's happened in the past, somebody just adopts it because they like the place, or the Boy Scouts use it, or, in Titicut, but it just shouldn't be that way. It's just a real failure. And it's another thing that I think that maybe, we'll need to get more vocal about if things just continue not to happen. So.
Pretty cool that someone took the initiative to go out there on their own.
Yeah.
Just do it. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and I mean, that was, originally there was supposed to be a system of parkland stewards. That was part of the town's plan a long time ago, working through the Natural Resources Trust of Bridgewater. There were volunteer stewards, but they were known, and they occasionally met and got together and had some guidance about what to do and reported on what was happening, etc. But it's been, I don't know, maybe 10 years since any of that's happened, as far as I know. So, all right. Anyway, that's the report from, not from town staff, but a report on the things that I talked with Steve about, and then Monica, thank you for that information. It's helpful having you here tonight. Okay, new business, just one thing I wanted to mention, actually, Maureen was the person who at one point, oh, by the way, I should ask, can you all hear me?
Yep.
Okay, because Maureen said she had trouble
Yes.
hearing me and she was really hoping we could go back to regular in-person meetings. But we just got a new interim policy. The governor has allowed remote meetings to continue through April 1st, 2022. And so Michael Dutton sent out an interim policy that was adopted that, leaving in place the requirement that all meetings in Bridgewater should be either by Zoom or by a hybrid. That they're not going back to in-person meetings, but except unless you want to do it as a hybrid. And I think that from what I gathered, the hybrid is only available to those staff members that have, those committees that have a staff member assigned to them. Because the staff member has to basically set up the hybrid system and have the computer and have the camera in at the in-person meeting as well as being able to be on Zoom. So anyway, the bottom line is that we will continue to meet on Zoom for the foreseeable future. And that's all that's available to us. So.
Wow, until
Right.
April of next year. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, you said you said I'm muffled. Is that what you said? You have trouble hearing me?
Yes, I do. It's
Okay.
just not clear. Everyone else is clear, Eileen.
But I'm not.
Right.
Well, I don't know what to do about it.
I don't either.
All right.
Mac, Eileen, you have the latest Mac computer, right?
No,
Oh, okay.
you're just kidding.
that was my joke for today. Sorry.
Right, I know. All right, well, I will try to
Huh.
speak distinctly. All right, let's move on to our homework, the open space handbook. This was Lauren's good idea last week for each of us to commit to read the handbook and to come to this meeting with some idea of something we gathered from it that's good or helpful or meaningful for what we're doing. Kevin, did you read it? He's disappeared.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. I'm just doing some extra things here. Sorry about that. I'm just listening while I'm trying to multitask.
I'm asking you if you did your homework.
The handbook, when I'm not sure if I remember recalling
Alright.
that.
All right. Yeah, he gets an F on homework.
Well, I can't
Lauren.
lie. I mean,
Right.
sorry.
Lauren, did it was your idea. What did you gather from it? The most salient points.
I think one thing was sort of reassuring that some of the issues we've faced are sort of common across open space committees, since they're not, sort of setting policy, that there is sort of this flexibility that can lead to, sort of trying to figure out what the role is. So, I was sort of happy that they spoke to that. And I think, it was really helpful in the way that it laid out like all the different grant opportunities and, the different ways of conserving land. I think with the grants, we're not, other than, CPA, we're not quite there yet, but I think, the signage thing, I mean, there was a quote somewhere that was like, why do we need more land? We're not doing anything with the land that we have. And so I think that that's like sort of a perception that Bridgewater might face, given the state of signage and, the undeveloped nature of some of these parks. So I think, it had a lot of salient points. I think one thing that we haven't really talked about in the group as during the time that I've been involved is like some sort of like community volunteer activity, like a park cleanup or something. And so, I mean, that might be worth talking about at some point if we wanted to get more community members involved, or to like see who has an interest, like reaching out to Boy Scout troops, Girl Scout troops, church organizations, like to sort of see who is interested enough in open space that they, are sort of willing to volunteer for something like this, because it was talking about like, we're required to get feedback in developing the town's open space plans and things like that. And of course, the city does surveys all the time and, things like that of varying, usefulness in terms of the participation. But I think they mentioned that getting input from people who participate in events is another sort of useful way to get the input that you need in order to set the priorities of the town. So I thought it was a really helpful guide.
Mhm.
Well
Okay,
said. Well said.
thank you. Nicole, were you able to take a look at it?
Yeah, I scanned, I didn't read it, the full document, but I definitely scanned it. And because one thing, basically, similar to my comment before, what I think would be most valuable is just sort of a guidance about forming relationships, finding out how to identify properties to potentially acquire, trying to even better understand. There's like a list, there's not only chapter 61, there's other types of categories basically that land can be put in, such as conservation easements and other things. And I guess just wondering how we get our arms around the inventory of what exists today, which I know is something that Lauren was looking at, but that was specifically for the chapter 61. I wondered, if we have a handle on other parcels around the town that are supposed to remain undeveloped and how that's being tracked. I was speaking with a friend that actually lives on Harvest Lane, who was just, I don't remember how it came up, but she was describing that when the development was built, there was supposed to be this open space, protected open space that I think the homeowners association or someone was supposed to maintain. And I know that the residents kind of do use it. And I think they have problems with kids dirt biking back there and things, but so that's an example of the fact that something like that exists. And I just wonder how it's being kept track of in the town. Like, what if all of a sudden that goes up for sale and someone builds a brand new, Harvest Lane with another 50 houses, so it's like just getting our arms around all of that, I think is where, I'm struggling understanding that and understanding like where that information might be and how we could help.
The Leach family is the one that developed Harvest Lane. They were the ones that owned all the land. And I think what she's alluding to, because the Leach family also did my neighborhood. They owned my cul-de-sac before it became houses. And I think that was more of a promise than anything else. I don't think it was a stipulation writing. I could be wrong, but I think it was more than anything else.
Yeah, and I know, I mean, it is open space. I'm just
fam-
using that, that it is an example of something that there's things that are said, right? Maybe they're not written down. I think that even the old field estates, there was supposed to be some amount of land put aside for open space, but that sort of slipped through the cracks and was never fully in writing. So, maybe that's more of a policy thing with, when these projects are getting approved through, planning and, through planning and so on, that is documented. And I think, what Jennifer mentioned is that happened, that went through a long time ago. There's a whole new leadership and everything now, but, I'm just, maybe all these are kind of lessons learned for things that we can keep bringing up. So hopefully the same mistakes aren't made in the future.
Yeah, I mean, if I can just touch on that as well. I mean, like, I didn't read the handbook. I don't know. Forgive me for not reading it, and I don't remember getting it. But like, when the new developments in progress, like as a committee, I feel like we should have it be more of like a stipulation so that they're almost forced to say we will be beholden to that from the town perspective, to see those open spaces become a reality instead of just promises that they just.
I think there's more to it than that I learned when I was involved with a Taunton River watershed on the project with the NIP. You know, if their conservation laws aren't tight enough, then they default to the state laws. And sometimes you just gotta do what's right for the town, like, you know, like that development over by the Cherry Street there, that the trees got completely wiped out. If you had something on record that said, you know, like, you can't do that, you have to leave, you know, like trees in the perimeter between the homes or whatever it is, it has to be written into the law. It can't just be something that a committee says. So you're gonna have to push a little harder on that.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that has,
Okay.
I thought, go ahead, Pat.
that has to be written into our tree ordinance.
Yeah.
You know, when the rezoning comes up, we have
Yeah.
to be prepared for that.
Right, as an ordinance from the town, and that's what we gotta, that's the
Right.
control that we can, that's
Yeah.
the influence that we can have.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
thought that handbook was really, really informative. And I think I had some of the same reaction as you did, Lauren, and just feeling relieved, like, oh, yeah, everybody's confused. It's not just us or
Yeah.
me as chair of this, you know, yeah, it's hard to, you know, you have more flexibility, but yeah, so you have to pick and choose. But I also thought it was just some of the technical stuff was just so well summarized. The chapter 61 information was really good, even though I felt like I'd read stuff before about that. I thought this was just so succinct, and that the whole idea about chapter 97 requirements has been something I know is out there, like how is land truly protected? And like, I know that there are instances for a town, if it wants to do something with its parkland, like put a building on it, or, you know, it has to get approval from the legislature through chapter 97. But I don't really know much about it. And I was really glad to see how it was spelled out there. And so I thought it was just, you know, the really practical stuff, but then more legal stuff was really helpful too. And I think it's good to refer back to, you know, I think we should all use it as a resource as these issues come up. And Kevin, listen to me.
Yes,
You need to read the handbook, please. It is a really good resource for anybody on this committee. The link is
sent
in
from
the
email?
link is in the agenda. I don't mean now. I mean, like in your spare quiet time. There's a link in the agenda.
All right, I'll take a look at it. Yeah,
All right.
okay.
No.
It was
read
compiled,
cover
it
to
was,
cover.
it was published by multiple state agencies, right? That kind of came
Yeah.
together. So there's a lot of information about the laws, about grants and kind of little mini case studies too, which are nice.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's just a wonderful tool to understand what we are charged to do here. So I think it's essential. that
Yeah,
we
I think
all-
that's great. I think it's
Yeah.
great. I
Okay,
think it's great.
okay, let's move on. And again, thank you,
Before you
Lauren. I
do,
think
could
that
I
was
make
a-
another comment on something that Lauren said?
Sure,
You know, she said something about, well, what are you gonna do with this property if you do get it? You know, it doesn't need to have anything specifically done with it, you know, like a park or a playground or anything like that. It can be simply to protect the wetlands, to protect the rivers, to do that so that your water quality stays good.
right.
Yeah, and I sort of pulled that comment out, not because I believe that, but because that might be public perception when, you know, the town is spending money or, you know, seeking limited grant money to use towards open space, just that education piece of it. You know, I don't want to jump ahead too much, but sort of in my research to work on the stuff for the website, it was like devastating to see like I used the Internet Archives to look at the old NRTB website, and it's like they had so much information on our open spaces in Bridgewater on their website, and it's just so sad that that's not online now, because anyone, you know, new to Bridgewater has no idea that there used to be just huge amounts of information on the, you know, land and places to be outdoors in Bridgewater that is
Not
sort of
even new.
lost.
I was here 25 years before I knew about them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and actually, that's another point I did want to comment on what you had said, Lauren. I had the same impression about how, yeah, we need to get out more. We need to have more people, like, thank you to Pat and Monica who are here. It'd be good to invite more people to come to our meetings. The other thing I thought of is there was a Bridgewater Improvement Association, there's a Bridgewater Garden Club. Maybe, you know, just going and making presentations to some of those people about open space at some point. I'd be willing to do that. And that I think that, you know, and now that we're a little more established and we do have some projects that we're working on, I think that I'm at a point where I would be more comfortable, like, trying to go out and actually spread the message of what we're doing to other outside groups to try to get more interest and so, yeah, so I got that from that, what I was reading there too, is a lot of what we do is, you know, the relationships we have, the people we know, and who knows us, that we're, and that we are doing stuff. So I think, yeah, that's something going forward that we'll want to do more of for sure, so.
That's how every
Okay.
successful operation needs to happen. It's all about relationships.
Yeah. All right, so the next item was this American Recovery Plan funds. I sent out the letter that Michael Dutton passed on to me. It was written by a group of environmental organizations to, I think it was to the governor and to the state representatives, asking for funds to be allocated to open space issues, agricultural, recreational, conservation, et cetera, under the American Recovery Plan. And my understanding is that that's the bill that was passed at the beginning of the Biden administration. It has, Pat, you're looking puzzled. So, you know, so we all got we all got money in our bank accounts. Oh, she's not.
I'm just having trouble hearing you.
Okay. The American Recovery Plan, which was passed early in the Biden administration, which has lots of money for lots of stuff. And a lot of it hasn't been spent yet. A lot of it hasn't even been allocated as far as I know. And Michael, the letter that Michael Dutton sent out, he suggested might be similar. We might do something similar, that the Open Space Committee might draft a letter, particularly with respect to Hanson Farms, which is, you know, will be an immediate need for funds. And so I actually, I wanted to discuss this because he said, basically, you know, if your committee is interested, he would help us draft a letter. And I want to assess your interest, our interest, and work with him on that, because it seems like a good idea to me, but I do want to, I want to discuss it here. And I want everyone's approval. I actually want to take a vote on it, that we should make some effort. Actually, I even wrote I drafted what I thought would be an appropriate motion if we want to do that. That we would, that the Open Space Committee would agree to draft or sign on to a letter from the town to the appropriate parties requesting American Recovery Plan funds be made available for the preservation of lands owned by Hanson Farm. So, anybody have any
I
thoughts?
think that's a great idea.
Yeah, I can't see any reason why we wouldn't do it.
I can't think of a reason why we shouldn't do it.
I mean, one thing that's not quite clear to me is I don't, this letter, as I mentioned, or if you looked at it, it was to the state representatives and the governor. And to me, it sounded like they were advocating that they allocate funds to open space out of the pot that Massachusetts has gotten. And I need to check with Michael, because it seems to me that the next spot, once they do that, then the towns are gonna get some money for open space. And that would be the time to ask for a particular project in Bridgewater. So I'm not sure exactly what steps, what step this whole process is at, but I'm just following up on his recommendation. And if everyone is in agreement with that, I will take that back to him and figure out what it is exactly, where in this process these funds are and the allocation to different categories and how one applies for them, et cetera. Steve Sobel today said, yeah, there is a lot of money floating around. Different towns, different agencies are trying to figure out what to spend it on. And so this is a time to act for sure and get our requests in. So, I mean, it may be that we don't even want to limit it to Hanson Farms. It may be that any other open space project as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I was thinking too. I think
Yeah.
that's probably the priority, but
Yeah.
there's certainly others.
Okay, so somebody want to make a motion and amend it to broaden the target to beyond Hanson Farms.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to expand it beyond Hanson Farms.
Okay,
Can we make two separate applications or two separate letters, one for specifically for Hanson Farm and then the other in general as a general open space?
It could be. That's what I'm not sure of, because I think that if the town already has an allocation, then in the town's, instance, we might say one for Hanson's Farms and we might have something else specific. But if it's just coming from the state as a pot of money and the letter is just going to the state, I think we would be more general. So that's a good question, Kevin. I don't really know. I think I just need to talk it through with Michael a little more to figure out what's appropriate at this stage of the game.
Of course, of course.
Okay, so the motion is that the Open Space Committee agrees to draft or sign on to a letter from the town to the appropriate parties requesting American Recovery Plan funds be made available for the preservation of lands owned by Hanson Farm and for the preservation of other open space parcels in Bridgewater. Okay,
I second the motion.
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, because I think we wouldn't want to limit it only to the agricultural value, because that scanning that letter, there's a lot of talk about ecological, there's,
Right,
there's, lots of other types of project for climate change and things like that.
okay,
Which makes a big deal because we have to be specific on what we're requesting here. If it's for climate change or general use or something specific.
yeah.
Because I'm sure the state and the federal, I'm sure they have a budget for each of those subsets.
Yeah, you would think so, yeah. Okay. That's all for that. The next item, this is just an FYI. Kevin and I were both on this September 20th call. Pat, were you on that planning master plan?
I probably was.
Yeah, okay. Monica, were you?
No,
No, okay. So basically, this is just the next step in the master plan. Nicole, you're probably familiar with this, because the master plan is, I don't know what stage you would call it at. I mean, all the recommendations, the goals, the strategies have all been identified. And then this was actually how to implement, like what are the implementation steps? So this is just like the one more step in the process. And so we broke out into groups and under different categories of, like, one was open space, one was roads, I don't remember what they all were now. And we just read the various recommendations and commented on them. And we had a couple of opportunities, like I think there was a real lack of reference to agricultural properties in one of the sections we were looking at. So we were able to add that in. And the consultants who are putting this whole master plan together were in charge of this meeting, and they were taking notes on what suggestions people were making. And it was interesting. It was a interesting meeting, good discussion on a number of issues. So that's it. I just wanted to tell you that Kevin and I had both participated in that and did get in some plugs for issues that we care about. So, and I can't remember what the next.
It was really
step was.
fun.
Yeah, it was fun, but they will be
It's a
coming
fun
out with some
presentation.
sort of another report. And whether that's the end of the master plan then, is it done? I don't know. Do you know, Nicole? Or does it just keep going on?
It's not supposed
I
to keep
never-
going on, but yes. I think at some point it needs to be, the document will be kind of formalized, but I think that was part of the goal of it is to, not have it sit on a shelf, right? To be implementable and to, be active and adaptable from day one.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, okay. All right, so the next item is a canoe launch at Sunrise Drive. Monica is here to talk about this. I asked and invited her to come to this meeting. I'm not sure this is a project for us per se, but I just thought it was interesting and a chance for us to connect with someone else in the community who's interested in all these issues. And I should say that Monica is the person who took me out to Wyman Meadows and kind of inspired my interest in that project. And so I just wanted to give her a forum to talk about this canoe launch that she'd like to see happen.
And I'd like to get you out to Tuckerwood too, so
Yeah,
let's talk about that.
all right.
All right, so can I share?
Yeah.
Okay. Host
Oh, do I-
disabled
wait, I
participant screen.
have to do something. I have to make.
Yeah, you have to give me permission. So while you're doing that, can I ask how many or if any of you kayak or canoe?
Me,
I've
I
done it
do.
a few times.
A little bit.
Yeah, I have in the past.
Okay, well, that's good. So that leaves Kevin. Did you hear the question?
Yes, I did. Yeah, I'm not sure if you heard me or if it went through.
No, we
Yes, I
can't hear
have.
you
I've-
from the
I've-
other side of the room, Kevin.
Okay,
I have my AirPods. I have my AirPods in.
okay. So everybody kind of has a little bit. All right, so that's good. All right,
Yeah.
so how far do you think you could paddle? 2
I know
miles,
this is a-
5
I know this is a
miles,
trick
10
question.
miles?
3
Anybody?
miles.
Can anybody do 10 miles? No, good.
I can
All
do
right,
it.
you can.
Well,
All right, you can. All right.
well,
So
I would imagine so.
I brought this to the Taunton River Stewardship Council and they have blessed this, but now it's my turn to go to the different towns that I have targeted to ask for specific launch sites. And the reason I am here in Bridgewater is because there is a launch site at Summer Street with a few parking spaces. I want to say 3 over on one side of the bridge and then maybe 2 on the other that might be on private property, but I'm not sure. But regardless, it's got parking. So the next launch area down the river that's got parking that is safe to load and unload your kayak or your canoe is South Street East in Rainham. And if you're not familiar with that street, it's the one, if you're going on 44 to Walmart, you go up to the next light and you take a left. It's a 10-mile paddle. So I took a look at the map and I noticed that Sunrise Drive is about 5 miles down in the middle. And if any of you have paddled the Taunton River, you know at Titicut Street, there's usually a little bit of rapids or quick water or something that would prevent you from turning around and going back up unless you got out and dragged your boat up and over the bridge. So can I share yet?
Oh, yeah, you should. It says you are co-host.
Okay. Okay, this one. So here is Sunrise Drive about a year ago. Plenty of parking, a little overgrown. So it was my request that a path be made, probably where you see the telephone pole, down to the river. When I took this picture, I would say it was probably about 30 feet. And Eileen had asked me about who would do the work, and I have a group of friends who already do work at Stiles and Hart and some of the other properties in town. And we would be willing to do this work, just clear it and put in access to the launch. What it might need when water is lower is some kind of a cement ramp. We don't know that yet. Because I was there just last week and we could get in and out easily. But I know that once water gets low, it's wicked mucky, it's wicked slippery. So we may have to do something to make it safer. No, that's just my testing. Sorry. So I went last week and took another picture. Not that one, that one. So somebody's been down there and put that trail in and cleared some of the brush to within maybe 10 feet of the river. So all it needs is a little bit of trimming. And, you know, as far as I'm concerned, this path, this walkway just needs, you know, a rake and some cleanup. It might be nice if it had some rocks or something to prevent erosion. But we could work on donations for that. And the area, the parking area has also had something, you know, like asphalty put on top of it. So that's already improved, but yet nobody in conservation knows that this work has been done. So I don't know. So
I'm looking at I didn't know where Sunrise Drive is, but I found it. But I'm
Okay.
looking at like the parcel map, and it does look like the right of way line does extend basically where this trail is carved. Like it goes, you know, straight from that roundabout straight to the river.
correct.
Yeah, so the town owns
It
it
is
then.
town property, yes.
Okay.
There is a sign up there, if you can see it right here. It says town property.
Hmm. Oh, right there, okay. Huh.
Yep.
Yep.
And to the right of my truck is a parcel of land that 3 years ago, Kitty had said something to Mike Dutton that the landowner wanted to donate that piece of property to the town. But for some reason, Mike doesn't remember why, but he didn't want it. So on both sides of this street, it's just woods.
Yep.
So it wouldn't be disturbing anybody, you know, except for the additional traffic, which wouldn't be very much. But this would be an ideal location so that people who cannot paddle 10 miles have a way to get out.
Okay.
And
It looks great. It looks great. I mean, it seems like it's minimal amount of work to make it work
Right.
well for
Yeah.
access.
it is.
I can
So-
share my screen at some point too to show it on a map if anybody is curious to see where that is.
Okay, let me
Yeah,
unshare.
Oh, but then, yeah.
Okay, go
Yeah,
ahead.
it is a residential street, but it's not there are, what are there, like 8 houses or so on it, Monica? There's
I
probably
think maybe up to 12, but
12, okay,
yeah, it's still a short street.
yeah. I looked up on the assessor's map to see if if there was a town parcel owned on that street, and it didn't list any. But if it's just the right of way, I guess that wouldn't be listed as a town property.
There's a tax exempt property too, which I think is the one Monica was mentioning was to the right of her truck.
Oh, okay.
I can share my screen. The one to the left of of your truck, it looks like that there's a house, even though it's quite far away from the water, they own all the way up to the river.
Can you share? Because I've got that up if you can't.
Oh, It's, yeah, I think, Eileen would still have to give me permission, so you can,
Oh, but you have it too, Monica?
Yep,
Did you say?
there we go. Yep. So I was seeing that the one on the,
this one here
Yeah,
is
when
the
it's-
one that was proposed to be donated.
yep, that's tax
Oh.
exempt. That's what the zero means usually, I think. and
Oh,
then-
okay. I did not know that.
Yeah, because
Oh.
see those other two little ones too, right on the water?
Oh,
Yep,
yeah,
like things
yeah.
like that. There's like little easements. So it doesn't mean I don't know exactly what it means. I've only figured out it means tax exempt, but I think that could be a million different reasons why it's that. But anyway, yeah, but the one across the street, even though that house is far, you can see the gray and the brown for
Yep.
the house. It looks like they own all the way up to the water.
Yeah,
Cause see how it's got a number, parcel number 78 or whatever that says.
Oh,
That's how I'm starting to figure it. Yeah, number 78. So see how it's 0 Sunrise Drive.
Yep.
There's, yeah.
I'm sorry for the enlargement there. I keep clicking on it trying to get information, but it's not coming up.
No, it doesn't. Yeah.
There it is. So it's owned
Oh.
by the Harry Share Trust.
Trust.
Yeah,
huh.
so he's willing to do, I believe Harry himself is dead. But this used to come up saying that it was town property and it's not. Okay, well, I'm gonna stop playing with that, but so there are 2, 4, 6, well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Well, these two are on South Street, so 11 homes on the property, on that
Okay.
street.
Yeah.
Okay.
So my question is, how do you get permission to move ahead with putting a launch site here?
Mhm. Yeah, and I certainly don't know. My impression from talking to Steve certainly is it has to be a conservation commission determination because of the proximity to the river
Correct.
and if there are any wetlands in the area and.
Yeah. So that everybody knows, I've asked him about this before, and basically it's a low priority on his calendar, so he suggested I come to open space and see if you can help me realize this dream. So that you know that this is part of a bigger project. We're targeting one at Cherry Street on the Halifax side, and then there'll be one at Summer Street, and then this one. Then another one in Rainham, actually 2 in Rainham. And we're just working our way down because there are tons of beautiful launch sites with plenty of parking on the lower Taunton, but the upper Taunton is just forgotten.
Mhm.
And it's not safe. I mean, if you try to use Titicut Street, especially at shift change, you're loading and unloading while you're parked in the street. And it is dangerous, especially, if there are 3 or 4 or 5 cars there. It's just, it's not a good situation.
Mhm.
So I want to make it safe for people to be able to park and load and unload and use the river. I mean, it is designated wild and scenic, but nobody can get to it.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's. So
It's-
in order to
yeah.
go to Conservation Commission, we would need something drawn. They would need to understand, right? They would want to know, what are you going to do? How much area are you going to disturb? So it's basically, we almost need a little plan.
Okay,
Probably, that's why, I'm just kind of walking through this. I know this would be a town project, but they would need, to review something. So if it does have the blessing, it sounds like we could have the blessing of the town to move forward with it, assuming it's kind of a volunteer activity.
Mhm.
Yeah, it
Is
was,
that- is-
Go
Is
ahead,
that
Pat.
the best plan to donate it to the town as opposed to DCR?
Well, the town owns the there's a part that the town owns that,
Right.
so that
Right,
the connection could be made without the donation.
yes. Yeah, that would be a bonus if
Yeah.
that piece of property were to become town property, but it's not necessary for this project. Um,
But it could almost help to activate that, like saying we now have this canoe launch here, and he may, the family may, be excited about it, of a little small trail or a picnic area or something.
yeah,
Low impact, obviously, we would want to keep it wooded. But, perhaps that could help, activate them wanting to remember that they're
Right.
willing to donate it.
yeah,
And the motivation would be reduced taxes for them.
I think they already have. They may have little to no taxes on that.
right.
Okay.
So then it would become an obligation to the town to, another piece of property to maintain, or I don't know what they
Yeah.
do, supervise or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, my impression talking to Steve was that, it's funny that you said that he suggested that you come to us, Monica, because I thought his response when I mentioned it to him is that, well, that's not really an open space issue. So, I don't know. We're getting bounced around here or what, but, yeah, I mean, I think he's got to be the person to deal with, because it has to go to Concom, I mean, there's nothing that we could do.
Right.
If at some point, maybe we could say, hey, we think this is a good idea for outdoor recreation in Bridgewater. I mean,
Yeah.
the Taunton River is one of the gems of open space, and so, yeah, I mean, I think, maybe that would be the approach but I think that any action has to start with Concom, and I
Right.
don't know what Monica, wasn't it you who said you thought that the state actually had jurisdiction of the river banks? or something?
Yes, within 10 feet of the river, I believe the state has rights.
Oh, okay. All right.
Well,
I don't have, oh, go ahead, Nicole.
Oh, okay. I would think then, perhaps the open space committee could help offer our support for the
Yeah.
project. We don't
Right.
have any, we don't have any authority at all. But
Right.
in relation to that, bringing up this other parcel is another one of those sort of parcels to potentially put on our list that, we may want to just understand what the current ownership status is. The more buffer to this river we protect,
Yeah.
the better quality it will be. So I do think that parcel is an open space issue.
Yeah.
And also, improving access to people to access the river, the wild and scenic river, and be able to ride up and down and actually see, the open space and nature. So in some ways, it's sort of just part of our overall initiative.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna
Yeah,
say the
that's-
same thing, that maybe we could have a letter that would go to the Concom to say that we support this, to say that this type of activity supports the town's open space plan. So we need to do things like this. I don't have enough experience with that other committee to know if that would help to sort of move it up on, being on their agenda to do what
Yeah,
they
that's
need
a
to
good-
do.
Good ideas, okay.
Yeah, I appreciate
I think-
anything
I
that
think-
you can, that I can show that, other people in the town are supporting this plan, this project. It just, I mean, it's a shame that there isn't more access to the river. I mean, it's gorgeous. There are
Yeah.
so few obstructions. There's very little trash. I take that back. Obstructions from Summer Street to Cherry Street are out of this world, but I'm working on that. They're
Those are
huge.
down trees and stuff, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, right, yeah. Yeah, I think, Monica, I mean, I think you know, based on the discussion here, I think that we're certainly open as a committee and favorably disposed to this and would be happy to write some sort of support letter. I think that you probably need to do more work in the meantime. I mean, I wouldn't want to commit to writing a letter now. I'm not sure exactly what, you know, we wouldn't know who to send it to, or I think we
Probably
probably
to
need to know
Steve.
more. I think we need to know more about this parcel so that we might be able to focus on that a little bit too.
Okay. But I don't want it to be denied because of the tie-in with this parcel.
Yeah, well, no, that's a good point. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think either way, you know, with or without the parcel, it's worth pursuing and certainly consistent with open space plans and the Taunton River
Okay.
wild and scenic designation, which obviously is a huge part of our goals to preserve and protect and enhance. So I think if you want to take that to Steve,
Okay.
and then, you know, let's figure out what the next steps are. And
Okay. I'll talk to Harry Bailey, see
okay,
what I need to pull together.
okay,
He's been a little bit more helpful on this project. He's also the chair of the Taunton River Stewardship Council, so.
and he's on the Concom, so.
Yeah, so between the two areas, he might be able to help.
Okay, great. All right.
Well,
Thank
thank
you
you,
for coming.
everyone. Thank you for your
Yep.
support.
You're welcome to
thank
stay
you.
on the rest of the call, Monica, if you'd like to. We'd like to
Okay.
have you. All right.
Yep.
Okay, now we're going to move on to old business. The tree committee, Nicole, anything going on in that? And we ought to try to tie it into Pat's comments too about the zoning ordinance. And I think that when is the hearing on the zoning ordinance, Pat? It's November 17th? The hearing on the,
I think they plan to have workshops before they actually, decide upon zoning changes. But
okay,
none of those workshops have taken place yet.
Right.
So at that time, I can keep you posted.
okay. Well, what is it that's scheduled for the November 17th?
I don't even recall what that date
Oh,
is.
okay. All right. I have that on my calendar for some reason. And it says zoning hearing and I don't know. That's why. Okay.
Maybe
right.
it's a workshop. I'm not sure.
Okay. All right. So Nicole, you want to go ahead with anything that's gone on with the tree committee?
Yeah, we've had, since our last meeting, probably about a week or two ago, we had another meeting where there was, at least a preliminary draft of kind of some language that came from basically the state actually had like a guidance document for tree ordinances. So we kind of used that as a base. There's a ton of discussion. It's a huge undertaking. So it's still very, very much in progress. I did mention the concern about kind of getting this into the zoning changes, which I thought were happening more rapidly. And similar to what you're mentioning, Pat, I think there's not a ton of time, but it does seem that there's time because there's more discussion going on about
Right.
a number of different items, so the trees, I guess I'm selfishly glad about that because I think there's just more time to hopefully get something in about the trees. On a parallel track too, we're just kind of talking about other ways in which we can, help support more protection of trees in open space, such as through the subdivision bylaws. So, that's another piece that, everyone's sort of going back and reviewing and just trying to kind of come to terms. I mean, my role on the committee is a little bit more just about, the kind of more the stewardship side. I don't fully understand like the legality and how that, how it's actually going to come, through. So there's it's not close yet. Based on what I've
That's
seen.
true. Right.
Yeah,
right.
so, I mean, I
And
think the
there's
intent.
nothing in our zoning regulations to protect the trees now, nothing. So we're starting from ground zero.
Correct, correct.
Mm.
I will say that there's something at least in the subdivision rules and regulations, but unfortunately it doesn't protect clear cutting. It doesn't really define trees that are, it doesn't require much mapping or identification of large canopy or significant trees. It doesn't have quantitative requirements for protecting trees, doesn't, again, have requirements for the clear cutting. So those are all things that I'm, helping to bring up, and we're looking at other examples. Like, so for example, there's some model bylaws that, limit, I think Monica mentioned something to this effect, like within the unbuildable zones of a lot, you can only clear certain percentages, or, based on the size of a parcel or a series of development parcels, there's only a percentage that could be, clear cut, for example, because, you need to put a house there and some of the other necessities. There's like language for just basically, in general, right, for different projects, establishing significant trees, and basically requiring a permit for their removal, and basically some sort of
Replacement.
monetary compensation or some sort of compensation for planting additional trees to compensate for it, which, obviously you can never replace a large canopy tree in kind. But it's, yeah, I 100% agree. Right now, we saw that at Oldfield, over 100 acres of canopy trees, upland canopy trees were clear cut. I think our greatest asset, in me just scrolling around the rest of the town, is most of our remaining forest is in wetter areas and more low-lying areas. So what's protecting us there is the Wetlands Protection Act and the wetlands permitting process and so on. So, but I do think that there must be other upland contiguous tree forests in the town for sure that are providing substantial habitat and corridor connections. Because I mean, when we look at the map of how the town river and the Taunton River are basically, sinuous, right? So there's migratory birds and everything connecting to those, and those forests are little by little just gone. So it is imperative that
Absolutely.
we somehow get that under control. And there's, I mean, everybody is on board with it. So it's just a matter of rolling up sleeves and just getting it done. Oh, I know. But it is like some of the interesting things we've talked about, like, okay, well, if we only have it in the subdivision rules and regulations, technically, if you don't have a planned project that you're bringing forward, unfortunately, there's nothing holding someone back from just going out and clear cutting all their land. And then 3 years later coming and saying, oh, I want to build 50 houses here. So that's kind of like the aha moment, like, okay, we do need a bylaw to protect the significant trees and protect the clear cutting.
Yeah.
So it can't only be something in the subdivision rules and regs, although that might be where if we have to take baby steps, that's where it starts. And you would just hope somebody isn't so, disingenuous that they would go ahead and do that. But
We just had a 3-acre building. That's the size of the building built. And then they clear cut all of the trees right next to 495.
yeah,
And many of or a few of our neighbors objected because of the sound and the animals, etc.
yeah,
Well, there was nothing we could fall back on.
there isn't.
It's all gone.
Yeah.
It's all
Yeah.
gone.
Yeah,
We can't get
Pardon?
that back either, which is
Right.
No.
And another priority area that I had brought up too, one other priority too is our rural roadways. I think that there's something to be said about that tree canopy. So that was something else I kind of brought up, trying to protect as many of those trees as we can, especially along some of our roads that have been sort of designated as having like a rural, significance. I think that's like, for example, Auburn Street or probably Old Pleasant, some of those.
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds great, Nicole.
Yeah, no, that's really well said. That was
It's
really
just
well
going to
said.
take some time, but there's everybody on the committee is so committed to it. So, and that includes right up to the top because Michael's really driving this. So that I think that
Oh, that's good.
that's the way it's going to happen, is being driven from the top. It's just, I never realized how much work it's going to be to actually get it done, you know?
Yeah.
Are there
So-
other towns that you can look at that have already instituted something
Oh,
like?
yeah. Oh, yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
We have all of those. We use the model ordinance. So we're
Did you
definitely,
look at-
there's a
At
good
like
start.
Northampton, they have
We have
a
that.
tree ordinance, yeah.
Yep. All of
There's-
the ones that have the really strong ones are all of the belt around Boston, like the Westons and, all of those. They are literally protecting every last tree. But and I agree with that wholeheartedly, but what I did a lot of research on is trying to find other towns that are more similar to us based on, our, economics, the size of our lots and like the different type of land we have. And those are where you started seeing the hints of the clear cutting and some of that coming in. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's going to be a balance. I don't, think what, Weston does would be exactly what we should do, but we have so many examples. So there's a good start.
Yeah.
Especially with home prices so lucrative, developers
Right.
are they can't resist to just say we're going to maximize as many houses as we can humanly fit
that's-
into that area,
That's
Yep.
right.
right? Yeah,
Yeah.
they don't care about anything else. They just care about
or
how much
commercial.
money they're gonna
Yeah.
make. That's
Not
it.
just houses, it's commercial too.
Yeah.
You would think
Right.
that not having to cut down some trees would save them some money.
It does not, because when they cut it down, you have free reign to regrade, you don't have to, it makes design so much easier because you don't need to navigate topography and
Right.
you can just
They
go
love-
ahead and go
yeah.
in with a bulldozer and
Yeah.
just level everything off.
Yeah, it's
Um,
much cheaper, much more
It's
efficient.
much cheaper. So they honestly, and they're selling these houses for $500,000-$600,000. So they're rolling in the dough. But one thing I brought up actually based on the commercial and the industrial is that, I don't know if you've ever driven through like Burlington or sort of that area where you kind of get off 495 and you've got like the EMCs and some of these companies that I just think they do a really good job about protecting the buffer. You're kind of going through these country roads and there's a lot of trees and buffer. And then you look back there and you're like, oh my gosh, there's like a tech company or a software company with this really
Yeah.
cool little campus, but yet they're in the trees and they got their little picnic tables and things like that. Like they really somehow do a very good job of protecting the trees, protecting the buffers along the roads and the side lots. And it's still supporting development. They have tons of it. And we need that development for tax revenue. So we want the commercial and we want the, industrial to come. But I think it can
true.
be done in such a way that actually
That's
their
true.
spaces could be more desirable if it's a
Yeah.
place that people actually
Yeah.
want to work, where they can
And
go outside at lunch.
I told Eileen that I had gone over that Broad Street project here in Bridgewater to see what they were planting or what they were proposing. And they actually did a very good job with native trees, etc. There was only one ginkgo tree, which is not native.
Oh,
And I was pleasantly surprised. I mean, I was shocked that they had done such a good job on that.
well, that's where I think that we do have control because the subdivision regulations, definitely require plans by a landscape architect. There's like a review process. So I think that those are the projects that are getting, the attention to the landscape because they, have to. But there's a lot of others that, you can plant a little twig in the ground that's never going to live. It's not,
Oh,
that's
right,
not
yeah.
gonna,
And some buffers are ridiculous. They're a joke.
yeah. Yeah.
They're just,
Pat, I want to, this reminds me of something that you've raised with me before, is just a requirements to plant native species. I'm
Right.
wondering, Nicole, if that, I mean, you're looking more at protecting existing species, existing canopy, existing trees. Is there any discussion in this about what would have to be planted?
Yes,
Yeah, okay,
yes, it
because
will
that's
all be
what-
native,
native. Oh,
adaptive.
okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So actually, that was part of the discussion too, that there may be, so for example, a significant tree is most likely going to be a native, large diameter canopy tree. But I think that there could be a conversation as to whether a, non-native tree, warrants protection or not. But there, that all of the, see, that's what I mean. Every single thing you bring up,
Yeah,
there's a
right.
huge conversation, and that's
Yeah,
what makes it
right.
more and more and more
Yeah.
complicated, and the whole maintenance side of things and everything. So I think as a start, I think we keep trying to go back to, let's just make it as simple as possible and just cover the basics. But then you realize you can't, you kind of just got to go all in.
No,
So-
writing regulations is incredibly complex. It
Yeah.
just goes on and on and on.
Yeah.
I did it a
Yeah.
good part of my professional life, and it's
Yeah.
mind-boggling, really.
In the end, we need it. We desperately need it. So I'm so glad it's happening.
Yeah.
So I think hopefully there'll be time for people to weigh in and review it, but unfortunately it's not ready yet because it's a little back at the drawing board.
Right.
But I will continue to ask when the draft is ready, if I can share it with the committee, and I'm sure there wouldn't be a problem.
Great. All right, thank you, Nicole.
That's
a
it.
great-
Yep.
Great report.
I,
All right,
I believe it was Einstein that said to be the most sophisticated is to make something simpler or simple, but not simpler, right? And that's coming from Albert Einstein. So I think
Yeah.
that's, yeah, it's make it as simple as possible, but also cover everything. And that's, yeah. And I know we'll do that, of course. Okay, that's
All
all.
right, I just
wanted
want to
to
give you a quick summary of the Hanson farm visit. Kevin and I went on the site visit at Hanson Farms on the 22nd of September. It was a great day, nice weather, and Bob Hanson had a hay wagon for us that he took us around in. It was really fun. Michael Dutton and Jennifer Burke, Community Economic Development Director, were there from the town. Kevin and I, Carlton Hunt and Gina Guasconi, who are from the Community Preservation Act Committee, which will be essential to this whole process. Bob Hanson and Carol Chafee, who's the sister of the Hanson, the three Hanson siblings. Am I forgetting anyone, Kevin? I think that's it.
Mr. Hunt, you mentioned Mr. Hunt?
Yeah, but anyway, it was a great tour. I mean, Bob took us all around the, not yet. I was going to screen share myself. I wanted to show you these are maps. Bob Hanson had, there we go. He had a couple of maps that he handed out, and then these green lines, I think are Carlton Hunt draft. He sketched these out on his own after the meeting. He sent them out, and he showed them at the Community Preservation Act Committee that night, because that evening was when the Community Preservation Committee met. And I just wanted to show you this. It's interesting. I mean, if you can see, this is 104. And these green lines, like part of this property has already been surveyed by the Hansons, like along this side. The rest of it, they don't actually have the survey completed yet. And they're going to have to do that before any movement ahead. And then let's see, the other one I think is basically just another version of this. Here it is. Okay, here. All right, I don't know, for some reason that's not coming up. But in any case, you can see it from that picture. Am I still screen sharing or is it gone?
You're screen sharing, but it's just showing the circle.
Yeah, why is that? I don't know why. All right.
They're just really tiny.
But at any rate, the point is that there's, what I was just gonna say is there's quite a bit of woodland in the back of the farm area. And they're talking about the potential for having a trail on the farm as well, which was really good to hear. And that often can make it more amenable to getting other funds for conservation as well as just agricultural properties, you know, that if it's used as a hiking trail of some sort around the property and back into the wooded area. So it's beautiful, beautiful land. I mean, you know, when you only see the farm stand, you don't realize how far back it goes and what a really gorgeous piece of property it is. And they've got wetlands and ponds back there as well, which would have to be part of the, you know, the protected areas. And so it was very interesting. The one unfortunate thing is that I got this meeting organized so that Scott McFadden, who's the person from the Wildlands Trust that I've been talking to, who is interested in helping us with this whole project, I wanted him to meet the Hansons and to meet the town staff, and he couldn't come. He was sick, and so he missed the hayride and the site tour. Bob Hanson's son is getting married on the property next Saturday, so he didn't want to talk to us anymore until sometime in November. So I'm trying to arrange a meeting now for Scott McFadden to come out and meet with the Hansons in November and get his own tour. And then we did submit to this Community Preservation Committee meeting that night the CPA eligibility form that we discussed at our last meeting, and you all approved it, that the Open Space Committee could go ahead and submit it. Michael actually signed it. He thought he needed to sign it, which makes sense. I mean, we really can't act for the town in any way, but we were on there as the project proponent, I think. I don't remember what our term was, but anyway. So that was approved. It doesn't mean anything in terms of amounts of money because we don't have any idea what this project, what the value of this preservation restriction would be at this point. It's the Hansons have had an appraisal of the property, which would be at its full market value. So, you know, what it would bring if you sold it to a developer. The town will have to do an appraisal that would take into account what the preservation restriction difference is, how much the value would be reduced by making it available only for agricultural or conservation land. So there's a whole lot of work to be done. Bob said he'd be ready to really get back into this in earnest in November. So I'm trying to set up a meeting with Hansons and Scott McFadden for November, and those will be the next steps. And it's a total of 75 acres. And it includes a little triangle across the street, like where you may see Bob Hanson out in the field sometime adjacent to North Street. So it's actually on both sides of the street, some of the property. So it's pretty exciting. So, all right. So
they were also saying that the piece in the back, they were open to a tree farm as well for the stipulation.
Oh, right. Yeah. Yeah.
As well. I just thought I'd mention that.
Yeah. Okay. Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Anything else, Kevin, that you wanted to add?
No, I'm just excited that it's moving forward. It seems like it's the right thing to do, but I get the feeling like they want to get the wedding. They want to focus on the wedding at this point in time, and then I know they have a new person that may take reins, you know, moving forward. Because I remember talking with Bob as well, and he was saying that while he's still active and with the farm, he wants to teach his successor, if you will, everything he knows at this point in time. So he has enough time to teach that, which I think is great.
Yeah. Okay, I put chapter 61 properties on this, Laura, and I'm not sure there's anything else that you wanted to say. I know you were kind of setting that aside, for a while. So, Although I think, you know, like as you said, I think reading that conservation manual was really helpful, like in trying to think about what our next steps would be. So I thought that was sort of a good framework. And let's see, Wyman Meadows. Okay, so this is me. What I've been doing is trying to track down all the documents related to this the town's acquisition of this property down back in, I think it was 1999. I got into the Plymouth County records and was able to find the deed, and just, what I'm doing is I think we need to prepare to go to the Conservation Commission at some point and tell them that they are the owners of this property, basically, because I mean, I suspect there's no one on the Conservation Commission who knows anything about this. I talked with Harry Bailey and he wasn't familiar with it. He doesn't know anything about Wyman Meadows, but it is a town parkland, and it was deeded to the town purchased it in 1999. It was a significant amount of money. They purchased both the 35 acres of conservation land and the 21 acres of the water department land. And they're adjacent, but they were two different deeds. And it was purchased from the whoever owned the farmer. There was a farm there, I guess, until 1988. There was a barn and a dairy farm. And the town, I mean, the deed says that if the town will use it for open space, and the town submitted some sort of a management plan in order to get a state grant to purchase this. And so it really, the town is obligated to continue to make it available and to use it as open space, because that was the part of the commitment when they obtained the grant. And I've gotten the management plan. I just got this yesterday from Kitty Doherty. She's cleaning out her offices and had a whole lot of stuff to give me. And actually, some of it I want to share with you, Lauren. I think there are a lot of maps, large paper maps for some of the parklands and stuff that may be of interest. And
Yeah, that'd be great to
Yeah.
be able to scan those and have those
Yeah.
posted, because, I'm not like I can move around the GIS maps, but it's, I'm not a graphic designer. So, being able to have something scanned would probably work the best.
Very good. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So
Anything
Kitty had some
like what I
great-
got? This is what I got. I don't know if you can scan it. I don't know if you can even see it, but it's kind of large.
what is it of?
When
Is
was
that a
that
Wyman
map?
Meadow?
That's a gift from Kitty.
Oh, okay.
Yep. This is the town and Taunton River map. So
Oh, great. Okay.
I don't know
Yeah,
the
we
scanner
had
that's
to
gonna
compare
fit that.
maps, because I got a bunch from her yesterday. We got to see what you have, what I have, and what Lauren might be interested in, and yeah, okay, good. Anyway, so yeah, I feel like I'm just doing some investigation now, trying to get the facts straight on this whole property, and then we decide, how we want to approach working with, I hope, the Wildlands Trust on it, because that was, as I mentioned at the last meeting, I have talked with somebody at Wildlands Trust, because this part of the motivation is that the Wildlands Trust owns property adjacent to Wyman Meadows, but with no public access. There's no road footage. There's other than from the river. And somewhat I don't know how else you would walk, what other land mass you would have to walk through to get to it. But at any rate, they would love to be able to get access through Wyman Meadows to their property. So that's part of what we want to see, if they're interested in helping us sort out how this property can be used and what would have to be done to make it. Right now, it's so covered with invasive species. Well, I guess it was a beautiful hay meadow at the town, when the town acquired it. It was hayed, and then since then, now it's just autumn olive trees and brambles and everything else growing up. So it will take some work to get it back to a meadow, if that's how somebody would want to manage it, if that's how the town would want to manage it. But there's a lot to be done in that yet, but I think that's kind of an exciting project too, so. All right, any questions on that? Anyone? No, okay. So the last item is the town website. Lauren, I brought Lauren some NRTB brochures that I was meeting with Marilee Hunt about something this week in the town clerk's office and mentioned that Lauren was gonna be working on getting some information about the parklands up on the website. And she said, oh, I have these old NRTB, copies of these old NRTB brochures, flyers. And so she pulled them out for me and I gave them to Lauren. And as Lauren was saying earlier, yeah, the NRTB did a lot of work on these 6 parklands back in the early 80s. And it's hard to know even where to find it now. The Conservation Commission site does have the parkland studies that were done, but I didn't know that. I mean, you have to, they're not easily accessible. Nobody in the public would ever be able to find them unless they were really looking very hard. So anyway, that's part of what Lauren's working on. So do you have anything you want to talk about, Lauren, as to specifically anything you've done or you're looking at, or?
Yeah, I can, if you can add me as a co-host, I can share what I've done so far. So, basically I started out just sort of doing Google searches for the parks. And so the Taunton River Stewardship Council and the Nunkatesset Greenway websites both have a lot of information. Well, not a lot of information, but they have information about each of the parks. And so, it's interesting getting those brochures from you because they basically use the language from the brochures that the NRTB had already done. And so then when I got the brochures, I pretty much, so this is just sort of like a, taking what was in the brochures, linking to websites where there's more information. I didn't link to ones that are just exactly the same thing, since this is what a lot of these sites are using. The directions from the brochures, which are helpful since I've got some landmarks on them, but also like the Google Maps, like using the, people can just click on the link and bring up directions. And then I have these pictures as like placeholders to show like where people are parking, but I've gone to a couple. So I had never been to Tuckerwood or Wyman Meadows. So my husband and I drove around town to sort of see these places, and we took some pictures. So I need to like get those pictures on my computer to put them there. I mean, it's a little like, it's helpful for people to see where to park, but the parking is also like pretty sad and, like not necessarily something you like, look how great our park, so it's like, I don't know if that's what we want to put, or if we'd rather put just sort of a nice picture of the view of the Taunton River from the park or something. So, I've got these Google Maps ones in as placeholders, but I want to get around to the rest. I go to Carver all the time, but I never have sort of taken specific pictures of the parking there. So, it's basic. I did this before. I had like found the sort of internet archive of what their website used to be, which had a lot more extensive information. So I want to go through that and, see if there's anything else to glean to put on here. So this is just sort of, if you can imagine this being on a website, this is, pretty basic, but would be at least something to orient people. But, it's really kind of hard, like I know the sign thing is lower on our agenda, but like Wyman Meadows doesn't even have a single piece of identifying information for the public. I mean, the Tuckerwood had like one little sign, you blink and you miss it, but at least it's, identified. So I think, it would be nice to have something that identifies it, as being conservation land of the town, so people know that they can, go there and they're not, walking on someone's private property or something.
definitely. All right, that looks great.
Yeah, that's really great. I like the picture because I feel like if I drove by and didn't see a car there, you wouldn't even know that that's the right, even though it's sad.
Mhm.
It would,
Yeah.
I would want to look at that before I go, just to like know what I'm looking for. So I think it's super
Right.
helpful. Maybe
Yeah.
someday that we can replace them with pretty ones with signs and that, cleaned up. I think that's great. Good job.
Yeah,
Thanks.
that's a huge step. All right. Okay, so I think we're almost done here. What's our next meeting date? How about all right, so I had on my agenda, this November 17th zoning thing. Now, I don't know if that's really happening or not, but I picked the 16th or the 18th, either before or after that. The week of November 15th. How does either of those dates work for everyone, the 16th or the 18th?
I think the 16th would be better for me.
Okay. Nicole, Kevin?
I think that works for me.
Okay. Kevin, you
November
good with the
16th.
16th?
Yep, November 16th.
All right,
Yeah, that's a-okay with me.
all right, it's 7 PM, good? Does this time work better for everybody?
I like 7 p.m. personally.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, that'll be it then, November 16th at 7 PM. Thank you both, Pat and Monica, for being here with us. I think you add a lot. I'll welcome you all the time. And well, you come all the time anyway, Pat, so that's good. We like that.
Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, okay. Enjoy the rest of your evening, everyone, and thank you so much. It was a good meeting.
Nice to meet everyone.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, nice to
Bye.
meet
you.
you. Thank you.
Bye.
Have a nice night.